Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Groover. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Groover, and I am so excited about this conversation we're going to have today, Jason. You know, when I taught the mini meditation, we've talked about breath work and mindfulness and all these things. I know I've mentioned taking a pause, right? There's power in that pause, because one of the things you get to do in that pause is just to decide whether you're going to react or respond. And we went first responders, right? We don't want first reactors. Nobody's ever been accused of having a knee-jerk response. Nobody's ever accused you of over-responding. It's those reactions that get us in trouble. And it's been a stressful time here at the old homestead. And I found myself getting stuck in reactivity, which leads to more reactivity, which leads to more reactivity. And then it's a really hard cycle to break. So I thought we'd have a conversation about responding versus reacting.
It's a good conversation, like you said. You know, the pause. It's there's that seven seconds subconscious to conscious brain, right? Pick up, so that when we get triggered, again, we're not thinking cognitively about what we're doing. We're reacting, usually within those first 7 seconds. So, you know, unless you have healthy habits, so that when the triggers happen, your habit brain takes over and you're reacting, but in an appropriate way.
Right.
We need to stop and respond, right? And it's that pause that ends up helping us catch up, realize what just happened, and then actually choose instead of reacting.
Yeah, those reactions get us in trouble. Now, we need the reaction. If you're driving your car and another car swerves at you, you want that reaction. You don't want to go,
I don't know, there's a car coming.
What I should do now. What are some options? Let's do a brain map. You know.
I know, can you imagine that? How many more accidents we would have on the road?
Right. Yes. Yeah, that would be a mess. But in this situation, I'll give you an example. My computer died the other morning. It was stuck in this loop where there was it was so full that it was almost out of memory. So I went to delete stuff to open up memory, and it was so full I couldn't delete anything. So I was stuck in this loop of I didn't have enough memory to delete, but I needed to delete. And I started freaking out. And my very helpful boyfriend says, why don't you turn it off and turn it back on? To which I went, no, it'll never turn back on. And I started because I've had that happen where there's not even enough memory to reboot it, right? It's just dead. And I was so afraid to turn it off. I take it to the Mac place. The guy says, you know, the first thing I did to fix it was I turned it off.
I turned it off.
I was like, motherfucker. Now, that reaction was, one, I've already had a stressful week, so my stress level had risen. I didn't have my memory was full too. So I didn't have the capability to make a rational decision from there. And it was based on a previous experience that I've had where the computer didn't turn back on. Now, regardless, they could have gotten it back on had I just paused for a moment. I was already rushed that morning. Had I paused for just a moment and went, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's reboot it and see what happens. I wouldn't have wasted $195 at the Mac store, you know? So it is about taking that pause and actually thinking through. I was not in a place to do that, and it caused a little bit of chaos.
Well, and it's interesting because you bring that up, and I actually, you know, one of the group coaching calls I just had in one of my programs, we were talking about resiliency, you know, which again is so some of the signs that you're talking about there, right, is it's like, okay, if we understand, if we know that our brain is full, our memory is full, our life is full, we're having stressful times, if we recognize that we're in a particularly stressful time, we're going to be more likely to react instead of respond.
Yep.
Right. And so, you know, the more that we can do as we start to recognize that we're getting to that point, right, then we end up, our inhibitions are down, they're gone, right? And so this happens, you know, again, I mean, how many stories are there of stupid drunk texts and other stuff, right? Because people are drunk.
I didn't.
Okay.
I really
You didn't
apologize
mean
for
it.
that. No, I apologize.
But it's the same kind of thing, right? I mean, when you get over intoxicated, we tend to react and do things that often we regret later.
Mhm.
So even without alcohol, it's the same thing. As the stress levels in your body go up, as these other things have happened, some of these stories pop up because of triggers, right? You got
Mhm.
triggered. Oh my gosh, my computer's not doing whatever it needs to. There's probably some business reason why it's like, I got to have my computer, right?
Yep.
All these things started adding up to your stress level.
Yep.
So yeah, when something comes out, at that point, then we tend to not respond but react.
We
So
react. Yeah. And here's one thing that helped me resolve all of that. So I had a podcast that I was supposed to do in about an hour, and I had a coaching client that night that I was supposed to do on Zoom. I texted the podcast lady and I said, I'm so sorry, my computer just died. So rather than rushing to find someone else's computer, rather than pulling my boyfriend off his computer, trying to figure out how to get on this thing, I simply set that boundary and was very honest with the people. And I said, I can't do that. And, I was trying to get them to rush the computer so I could do that coaching call that night. And then, I was trying to find a way to make this work. And I texted my coaching call that night. And I said, you know what? I'm so sorry. My computer just died. I'm just, and she goes, oh, that's okay. I've been feeling sick all day. Tomorrow's better anyway. So
boom.
it worked out better anyway, and so rather than stressing myself out even more, trying to find ways to solve all these problems, I simply moved stuff. I took control over what I could, which was my scheduling, and then that calmed me down enough that I could start to handle everything else. So it was, when stress builds up, and it was one of those weeks where, documents got lost and things are being delayed and, all that stuff that's out of our control. What can you take control over? How can you do a pattern interrupt to stop that craziness? Jump off the crazy carousel. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a meditation, maybe it's lunch with a friend, maybe it's a glass of wine, maybe it's a pet the cat for a while and just get back into yourself and help stop that craziness. That's the pause that helps us choose what we're going to do next.
Well, and what's interesting too is because taking that pause is important not only to reduce our stress levels, slow our brain down, right? That's one reason for doing it. But the other too is we usually don't have the answer until we slow down too, right? Because it's that whole
Absolutely.
Einstein quote, right? The same level of thinking that caused the problem cannot find the solution, paraphrased, right?
Yeah.
Is when we're in that, super beta state and we're freaking out. Well, in that freaked out state, we're the ones causing the problem. So guess what? You're never going to figure out the solution if you're still in that freaked out state.
Yep.
So slowing yourself down, and I don't know how many times this has happened to me, right? And I'm sure it's happened to you as well, is you just slow down. You go pet the cat. You get up, you go take a shower, and all of a sudden, ding, you know how to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when we're in the stress state, let's look at the classic fight or flight response. You have a couple choices. You're running from the bear, you're fighting the bear, or you freeze and do that thing. You're not meant to be doing higher brain function. You're not critically, thinking. You're not doing math. Your thing is run, fight, or freeze. Those are your options. So when you're in a stress state that isn't that physical stressor, well, I fought. I'm going to get this computer to work. I didn't pause to actually make a logical choice because my brain was not in a state to do that. So that's what that fight or flight response does. And, we have to ask the question, is that fight or flight worthy? Is my computer not working? Is that truly, should I mount this giant stress? The fact that my refi is not done yet, does that deserve this fight or flight response to something that I can't control anyway? And that's what stress is. It's that feeling of being out of control of things, that what we're being given is too big for us to handle. So what can we handle? Let's make a different choice. That's what we can control.
Yep. Yeah, great points. And again, how do we do this? Well, we just are kind of telling you here, right? So go back, rewind, we'll go through them again, right? But when you recognize it, take a pause.
Yep.
Because again, most of the time, like you said, Kathy, if we're in a car and we're driving and we're about to get in an accident, that's when we want our body to just take over.
Yep.
Okay. If there's some physical threat to us, we want our body to take over. We want to react. But 99% of what we go through every single day is not those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, pet the cat or the dog if you have a dog, right? Get up, walk outside, go stand in the grass, ground yourself, breathe, lots of different things that you can end up doing just to pattern interrupt and kind of slow yourself back down so you can think clearly again and then actually respond instead of reacting.
Yep. And set those boundaries. If you are seriously in such a state that you can't do that thing that you said you'd do, tell the person that and just rearrange it. The woman that I was doing the podcast with was not mad at me that my computer did. She's like, oh, we've all been there. Not a problem. Let me know when you can come back. The coaching client, it actually worked out better for her that we moved it to the following day. And I was, doing that. Oh, I can't cancel on you. She's new. And it worked out better. Just be honest with people. Set those boundaries. If you see you're going into a really stressful week, don't add more to it. You have a choice of what you fill your schedule with and how many things you put onto your plate. So it's about making better choices. And that way, when the stress comes up, you'll be more apt to respond rather than react. So
ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. I think the horse has been beaten.
No animals were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Except for Alistair, who might have been chucked outside. But he
brought it upon himself by scratching or biting you, right? So
he did not respond. He reacted. Oh, cats. All right. So there we go. So everybody, I hope you have a stress-free day. I'm definitely more calm, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygroover.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So relax, chillax, and make sure, I don't know, I just made
shellac. We're doing
shellac. We're doing woodworking too.
Oh, it's relaxing, sure.
It's relaxing.
I think it's shellac.
Shellac. Oh, there we go. Chillax. Chillax. Unscripted, everyone. And unedited. So, all right. Well, with that, go out, be a little bit more cognizant. If you're feeling stressed, relax so that you're responding instead of reacting. And catch us on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.